You're just too boring to plan something this important, my sister said, snatching the Hawaii vacation binder from my hands. After 6 months of meticulous planning for her bachelorette trip, she was kicking me off the planning committee 2 weeks before departure. Chelsea is taking over. She gets what this trip needs to be, she continued, not even looking me in the eye. I stood there, stunned into silence, as she texted Chelsea that she was officially the new trip coordinator. Later that night, I saw them laughing on Instagram about the overhaul they were planning, mocking my carefully researched itinerary. I said nothing, just quietly maintained my reservation. 3 days into the trip, my phone exploded with 24 missed calls from my sister, hysterical voice messages begging for help. Turns out, Chelsea wasn't quite the planning genius they thought. I'm still trying to process everything that happened. It's been 5 days since we got back from Hawaii, and I've been avoiding my sister's calls. I need to get this off my chest before I explode, so here goes. The disaster started the moment I saw my sister and Chelsea scrolling through my planning binder, rolling their eyes and making comments like, "God, she scheduled an actual cultural tour? Who does that on a bachelorette trip? And 2 hours for dinner? We need club time, not fancy meals." I'd spent months researching the best experiences in Maui that would balance fun with actual Hawaiian culture. I'd contacted local guides, found highly rated restaurants, scheduled a sunrise volcano experience that required reservations 6 months in advance. All of it apparently was too boring for a proper bachelorette vacation. Updated. Wow, I didn't expect this to blow up overnight. Thanks for all the supportive comments. To those asking why I still went after being kicked out of planning, honestly, I knew something would go wrong. And yes, I've got receipts for everything. Should I share? What happened when they realized Chelsea pocketed half the money? I've always been the responsible one in my family. When my sister Brooke crashed her first car at 16, I drove her to school for 3 months. When she failed her college English class, I stayed up all night helping her write a makeup paper. When she got engaged, I planned her entire engagement party, only to be cropped out of all the photos she posted because I didn't match the aesthetic. Each time, I told myself that's what big sisters do, even though I'm actually 2 years younger. Each time, I swallowed my hurt and kept showing up, so when Brooke asked me to plan her bachelorette trip to Hawaii, I was genuinely touched. "You're so good at this stuff," she said, "and I trust you to make it amazing." For once, my organizational skills were being appreciated. I threw myself into planning, creating a budget spreadsheet, researching activities, and even learning basic Hawaiian phrases. I spent hours reading reviews, calling venues, and creating a detailed itinerary that balanced relaxation, adventure, and celebration. I put down deposits from my own savings to secure the best experiences, trusting the girls would reimburse me as agreed. All that work, all that care, and then came the text. "Hey, we need to talk about the trip." When I arrived at her apartment, Chelsea was already there, looking smugly triumphant. They explained that while my planning was technically thorough, the trip needed someone with better party energy. Someone who understood what a bachelorette trip was really about. Someone like Chelsea, who had never planned anything more complicated than a happy hour, but had 15K Instagram followers and apparently knew how to have fun. Why did I still go after being dismissed so cruelly? Partly because I'd already paid for my ticket and accommodations. Partly because, despite everything, I wanted to be there for my sister's big celebration. And if I'm being completely honest, a small part of me suspected that Chelsea's planning would fall apart, and I wanted to witness it. Call it petty, but after a lifetime of being taken for granted, I felt entitled to at least see the consequences unfold. The first sign of trouble came before we even left the airport. The rental minivan I'd arranged had been canceled and upgraded to 2 compact cars, which couldn't fit all 6 bridesmaids plus luggage. We ended up paying triple the original rate for a last-minute SUV rental. It's fine, my sister kept saying, shooting nervous glances at Chelsea, who was too busy taking airport selfies to deal with the problem. Then came the hotel disaster. I had booked 6 months in advance at the Royal Lahaina Resort, oceanfront rooms with a group discount. When we arrived, no reservation existed under our name. After 45 minutes of confusion and increasingly panicked calls, we discovered Chelsea had canceled our reservation and booked the Hawaiian Breeze Motel instead, a dingy place 30 minutes from the beach with a decidedly untropical view of the highway. Her explanation? "I figured we'd barely be in the rooms anyway, so why waste money? The website had decent reviews." The reviews, as we quickly learned, were fake. The rooms smelled like mildew, the pool was green, and the promised continental breakfast was a sad box of donuts next to a coffee maker missing its carafe. My sister pulled me aside, her carefully applied makeup already smudging in the humidity. "This can't be right," she hissed. "Did you make a mistake with the original booking?" I stared at her, dumbfounded. "I'm not the planner anymore, remember? Chelsea changed the reservation." Why would she do that without telling me? The answer became painfully clear when Chelsea tearfully admitted that she'd kept the original budget, but reallocated funds, specifically to her own wallet. She'd downgraded everything: the hotel, the restaurant reservations, the activities, all while collecting the same amount of money from everyone. I was going to use it for surprise expenses, she claimed, though she couldn't name a single one. The breaking point came when we discovered she'd canceled the private sunset catamaran cruise, my sister's most anticipated activity, and replaced it with a coupon for a happy hour harbor view at a chain restaurant facing a shipping dock. My sister completely lost it, screaming at Chelsea in the motel parking lot while the other bridesmaids awkwardly pretended to be fascinated by the vending machine. Then, like a predictable clock striking the hour, my sister turned to me. "You have to fix this," she said, mascara streaking down her face. "This is what you're good at, solving problems. Chelsea is good at fun. That's why we needed her, but now we need you." Something inside me shifted in that moment. A lifetime of being the fixer, the responsible one, the dependable but boring sister who was only valued when things went wrong. It all crystallized into perfect clarity. I could feel a strange calm settling over me, replacing the hurt and resentment that had been churning since being kicked off the planning committee. "No," I said quietly. "What do you mean, no?" My sister's voice rose an octave. "You can't just let my bachelorette trip be ruined." "I'm not the planner anymore," I repeated her words back to her. "You fired me, remember? Because I was too boring." "That was... I didn't mean," she stammered. "Look, I'm sorry about that. Okay? But this is an emergency." I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I had a choice. I could fall back into my familiar pattern of rescuing her, or I could finally establish that my time and skills had value. "I'll help," I said slowly. "But not for free. Not this time." Her mouth fell open. "Are you seriously asking me to pay you, my own sister?" "Yes," I replied, surprised by my own steadiness. "Professional event planners charge for their services, especially emergency rescues. But we're family." "Exactly. And family should value each other's contributions." The parking lot fell silent. Even Chelsea had stopped her theatrical sobbing to watch this unprecedented standoff. My sister's face cycled through shock, anger, and finally, calculation. "Fine," she said tightly. "What do you want?" "Updated. Sorry for the delay. Trying to keep up with all your comments. Yes, Chelsea really did pocket almost $3,000 from our trip budget. And to clarify, this isn't just about money, it's about respect." My sister's initial reaction when I named my price? Absolutely priceless. Would you believe she tried to negotiate by offering exposure for my little planning hobby? I pulled out my phone, opened my notes app, and began typing. First, financial compensation at standard event planner rates, $75 per hour for the work I do to salvage this trip. Second, a public acknowledgement on all social media posts about the trip that I was the one who saved it. Third, a written apology for dismissing my original work. My sister's eyes widened with each point. "You're not serious." "I've never been more serious," I replied, continuing to type. "I'll also need you to Venmo me a $500 deposit immediately to cover any emergency. Booking fees. This is ridiculous," she sputtered. "I'm the bride." "And I'm a professional whose work you've consistently undervalued," I countered. "These are my terms. Take them or continue with Chelsea's planning." We stood there, at an impasse, as the Hawaiian sun beat down on the dismal motel parking lot. The other bridesmaids shifted uncomfortably, looking anywhere but at us. Chelsea had mysteriously disappeared, probably to avoid questions about the missing money. My sister's shoulders finally slumped. "Fine," she whispered. "I need your help." Finished typing, converted the note to a PDF, and airdropped it to her phone. "Sign it, send the deposit, and I'll get started." "You want me to sign an actual contract? With my own sister? Would you hire a photographer without a contract? A caterer? A venue?" I asked. "My services are no different." Something flickered. Across her face. Maybe respect. Maybe just desperation. She signed the document, sent the Venmo payment, and handed her phone back to me without a word. "Thank you for your business," I said professionally. "Now let's fix this trip." I went into full crisis management mode. First, I called the Royal Lahaina Resort, where I'd made the original booking. By some miracle, they'd had a last-minute cancellation and could accommodate us, at a premium price, of course, which I added to my sister's tab. Then I reached out to the catamaran company, explained our situation, and secured a sunset sail for the following evening. Again, at an elevated last-minute rate. Throughout it all, I documented everything meticulously. Hours worked, calls, made, problems solved, and sent my sister regular updates on her mounting bill. The other bridesmaids, sensing the seismic shift in our dynamic, began treating me with a new kind of deference, bringing me coffee and offering to make calls under my direction. Chelsea attempted to reassert herself once we moved to the proper resort, suggesting a spontaneous beach club crawl to replace my scheduled activities. I simply pulled out my contract and reminded everyone that I was now the official planner. "Unless you'd prefer to go back to the Highway Motel?" I asked sweetly. No one supported Chelsea's idea. The trip gradually transformed. The Sunrise Volcano. Tour that had been mocked as boring left everyone breathless with its beauty. The traditional Hawaiian cooking class I'd arranged became the highlight of day 3, with even Chelsea grudgingly admitting the food was Instagram gold. The private cabana day I'd originally scheduled provided the perfect recovery from the previous night's luau. Through it all, I maintained professional distance. No longer the overlooked sister, but the competent event planner who'd saved their vacation. I joined the activities, smiled for photos, even laughed at inside jokes, but something had fundamentally changed. I wasn't desperate for their approval anymore. The night before our departure, my sister found me alone on the balcony of our hotel room, watching the ocean. "This turned out amazing," she said quietly, handing me a Mai Tai. "Everyone keeps saying, it's the best bachelorette trip they've ever been on." I took the drink with a nod. "I'm glad it worked out." "About what happened with Chelsea?" she began awkwardly. "She took advantage of your trust," I said neutrally. "It happens." "No, I mean, I should have trusted you from the beginning. I was stupid to think Chelsea could do a better job." She looked down at her own drink. "I guess I just worried that the trip wouldn't be fun enough, that I needed someone more, I don't know, exciting? Instagram-worthy? Less boring than your responsible sister?" She winced. "I'm sorry. For what it's worth, everyone keeps asking how I found such an amazing planner." "What did you tell them?" "That my incredibly talented sister saved the day." She paused. "And when we get home, I'm going to tell everyone else that too, just like we agreed." I sipped my drink and watched the moonlight on the water. "Thank you." "So, are we okay?" she ventured. "We will be," I replied honestly. "But things will be different." She nodded slowly, understanding that our relationship had permanently shifted. We finished our drinks in companionable silence, watching the waves together, both knowing that when we returned home, I would send her an invoice, and she would pay it without complaint. True to her word, my sister made a lengthy Instagram post when we got back, detailing how I had rescued the trip, after some initial planning complications. She tagged me in all the photos, gave me full credit for every successful activity, and publicly thanked me for my professional expertise and incredible organizational skills. Chelsea, meanwhile, quietly returned the money she'd pocketed after several bridesmaids threatened to take the matter further. She's been noticeably absent from my sister's social media since then. As for me, I decided to take the skills I'd clearly been undervaluing and turn them into a legitimate business. I created a website featuring photos from the Hawaii trip, with my sister's permission properly contracted, and within weeks I had my first paying clients, ironically 2 bridesmaids from the trip who were planning corporate retreats. The Wikiu, most surprising outcome? My sister has become my biggest promoter. She refers friends, shares my posts, and even hired me, with a proper contract and deposit, to plan her husband's surprise birthday party. 3 months after Hawaii, I'm booked solid through the summer with events. I've had to hire an assistant to keep up with demand. Chelsea tried to launch her own event influencer business shortly after returning, but has pivoted to selling workout guides after several clients complained about her services. My relationship with my sister has evolved into something more balanced. She respects my boundaries, values my time, and actually listens when I speak. Yesterday, she called to ask if I'd consider planning their 1-year anniversary trip. "I'll send you my current rate sheet," I said. "I'd expect nothing less." She replied, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Sometimes it takes a disaster in paradise to fix what's been broken all along. And sometimes, being boring and responsible is exactly what makes you valuable. As long as you recognize that, value yourself first. Updated. Thank you all for the overwhelming support. My business is thriving 6 months later, and I've even hired Chelsea's former best friend as my assistant. The irony. My sister and I now have a healthier relationship with clear boundaries. I've learned that respecting yourself is the first step to getting others to respect you too. For those struggling with similar family dynamics, was standing my ground and demanding payment the right move, or should I have helped for free since she's family?